Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. 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 Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om to everybody. Pranam, pranam, pranam. Pranam, pranam. Yesterday, the prompting came that we should try to associate ourselves with the circumstances which were instrumental in the transition of Vittal Rao to Swami Ramdas. This is very much essential for sadhakas or bhaktas like us. Because normally when we go to an institution, normally when we have a darshan of a saint there, hardly we take our pains to know how the saint became a saint, No saint is just coming from the sky. He was also born like all of us, or he or she. And God has His own plans for each and every one of us. So in the case of Mahatmas, He made them to go through certain experiences, and then He will create the outer circumstances in such a way that His leaning is made towards Godward path. Ordinarily, none of us will be able to understand the why and whereof. But after some time only we come to realize that but for those circumstances, the transition of an ordinary individual to a Mahatma stage would not have been possible. And when we go through such experience of the saint, we try to understand the areas where we have to improve, or we have to give thrust, or we pray to Him. But with the limitation we have, it is very difficult for us to follow the same method. So kindly devise a plan suitable for this equipment. This equipment means the body, mind, intellect. So that our move towards Him becomes more and more intense, more and more intense. On the same lines, Papa also wanted us to go back to his own days. And yesterday we made a beginning. Due to some internet problem, we don't know which portions you were able to hear, which portions you were not able to hear. Anyway, we have some friends here also. Anyway, it is worth repeating it, because reading or hearing for once, that may not have a deeper dent in our mind. So to have it more impacted, probably a repetition is necessary. That is why probably he caused the certain problem in the internet. And one more thing which yesterday we forgot was how he first got the dimension of faith. So we will first go through that portion. Vittal Rao stayed in Bombay for about a couple of months. See, he came to Bombay because he lost the job in Nadiad. And from there he sent his wife and daughter to Mangalore, and he was in Bombay searching for an employment. Vittal Rao stayed in Bombay for about a couple of months, but all his efforts to secure employment proved futile. That he should have to be in search of a means of livelihood every now and then filled him with disgust. Just then he received an invitation from his father-in-law at Mangalore to join him in the clothes business that he had newly started. So Vittal Rao finally came down to Mangalore towards the close of 1917 and joined his father-in-law in his business. But the standard of commercial ethics, which ordinarily ruled the business world, was something new and strange to Vittal Rao. It went against his grain to stoop to any of the tricks of the trade, by which alone, according to the belief prevailing in the commercial world, one could attain any degree of success in business. The standard of his conception was something higher and nobler than the one which circumstances now forced him to conform to. He loved to be straight and square in all his dealings and hated the very idea of lending himself to all sorts of negative activities. Inevitably, this led to a clash between the father-in-law and the son-in-law, and Vittal Rao severed his connection with the business. While reading this, we remembered when we were in Wayanad, even in our childhood days, we used to remember some of the people who were involved in business, honest, straightforward, simple. They will not compromise on the quality. Suppose there is a shortage, they will not hike the price. Means they will not exploit any situation. People will go there, simply pay and come back because they know. They lead a very disciplined life at home also. So as Papa says, as Chandrasekhar Rao says, in the normal business world, people feel that it is no ethical or no moral or ethical values can be adhered to. It is not. Well, there have been many people during that time. Vittal Rao now started on a small scale of work. It's called the work of dyeing and printing saris. In a small room, he conducted all his experiments in dyeing and printing fabrics. About this time, now this is very important, the first touch of his, expression of bhakti, and faith and devotion. About this time, his wife was laid up with a severe attack of smallpox, and his daughter Ramabai with whooping cough. Vittal Rao kept vigil at the bedside of the patients day and night, and after a time, Ramabai recovered from her illness, but Rukmabai's condition grew worse and worse day by day, until one day her very life was despaired. Sorely tried by intense worry and anxiety, Vittal Rao approached the photo of Sri Pandurangashram Swamiji of Chitrapur Mutt, hanging in his room, and prayed deep and long for the recovery of the patient. As he knelt down before the picture of the Swamiji, burning tears flowed down his cheeks. As he prayed, a sort of calm and peace stole over his agonized mind, and from that moment onwards, Rukmabai began to improve rapidly and was before long her normal self again. This experience wrought an important change in Vittal Rao's attitude towards life. A sort of dispassion for earthly objects seized him. He would talk to everybody only of God, under the teachings of saints, and would freely pour out his heart, especially to his elder brother Sitaram Rao, who was now the chief sanitary inspector of the Bangalore municipality, and to his close friend Dr. Umanath Rao, both of whom were very religiously inclined and with whom Vittal Rao had a sympathetic understanding. Almost every night he would repair to his brother's house, taking along with him his little daughter to attend a bhajan held there. And after bhajan, an interesting discussion would take place between the two brothers, sometimes far into the night on a variety of philosophical topics. This dispassionate zest for religion waned away for a time during the period of business activities, but only to revive with added intensity and force at a later stage. The work of dyeing fabrics and printing saris, which Vittal Rao had started on a small scale, soon widened in its scope, and he found it necessary to move to a bigger premises and also to open a shop in the town to book orders and transact business. He received considerable encouragement and assistance in the enterprise from Sitaram Rao. A large house was rented at Falnir to serve the dual purpose of residential quarters and workshop. A shop was also opened near the Milagres Church, and the new business was styled Sri Sitaram Vittal Company. Vittal Rao now invited his co-brother Chandragiri Narsingh Rao, who was working in Bombay, to join in the new business as a partner, and both of them shifted to the new quarters with their families toward the middle of 1919. So this portion was not read yesterday. So first now God, see, we should know that it is not the individual, no? How God is setting the stage to sow the seeds of faith and devotion, and how then it got nurtured, developed later. And for that also he brought about the circumstances in such a way that his attention is purely pooled on this side rather than on the business side. The newly opened business was conducted on a pretty large scale, both in dyed and printed saris and in the sale of dyes. Vittal Rao attended to the workshop at home, while Narsingh Rao attended to the shop in the town. Later, Vittal Rao's eldest brother Narsingh Rao also joined the business as a partner. Vittal Rao put his heart and soul into the work and would personally lead his workmen in carrying out the different processes of dyeing fabrics. It was a familiar sight in those days to see Vittal Rao with his shirt and dhoti besplashed with all sorts of colors. The products of Sri Sitaram Vittal Company were highly appreciated by the public and even won a gold medal at one of the exhibitions at Mangalore. But Vittal Rao was too good to be a businessman. The wages that he paid his workmen were higher than what similar work would have earned for them elsewhere. Increments to the staff were frequent and were fixed without any thought to the financial condition of the company. The scale started tilting dangerously towards the debit side. The expenses became heavy, and whatever profit was made, they were swallowed up by the day-to-day overhead expenses. There was no capital to back up the concern. The company was rushing headlong towards disaster. In course of time, his two partners also left the business one after the other, as the state of affairs was neither bright nor hopeful. Such a precarious condition would have well-nigh crushed anyone, but it left Vittal Rao as irrepressible as ever. About this time, he worked most enthusiastically at a scheme to establish a power loom factory as a joint stock company at Mangalore. He took great pains to collect all the necessary statistics and data, and even the articles of association were drawn up, but the scheme fell through for lack of sufficient encouragement and response from the local capitalists. The writer had at this time the good fortune to stay with Vittal Rao for his college course had therefore the privilege and opportunity to come into close and intimate contact with him. The nights especially, the only time when Vittal Rao relaxed a little from his duties of the day, he would devote to reading light or serious literature. Vittal Rao would be in his element, especially when his brother Sitaram Rao or Dr. Manath Rao were also in his company. On such occasion, their talks would often prolong into late hours. Sometimes his father too would join his son's company, and there would be no end to the gaiety of the moment. For us youngsters, these talks were a rare treat. The discussions would be of absorbing interest and cover a wide field from the sacred to the mundane. Politics was the talk of the day. Mahatma Gandhi had just then assumed the reins of the Congress, and his non-cooperation movement had galvanized overnight, as it were, the political life of India. His message of Charkha and Qadar echoed and re-echoed throughout the length and breadth of Hindustan. Like Sitaram Rao and Humanath Rao, Vittal Rao too was an ardent nationalist. He became a great admirer of Gandhiji and took to wearing Qadar. Here we would like to mention that has been mentioned. Papa in one of his articles mentioned that it was after seeing Gandhiji, if you remember his words, the first touch towards spirituality came after seeing Gandhiji at a distance. Gandhiji had come to Mangalore for a function. Later on, when we checked up in the Google, we found that it was in 1920, and there was a big meeting in the police Maidan, and according to the Google report, more than 10,000 people had assembled at that time, in which Vittal Rao was also one. And Papa had written the same word. Seeing Gandhiji at a distance, that itself made him to experience an inexplicable state of mind. And then he said that was the first spiritual touch. Whether after this or that, we don't know. So after that, he switched over to Kadi, Qadar, he was chanting Ram Nam. Sometimes the discussion would turn up such learned subjects as the tragedies of Shakespeare or the works like of Milton, Byron, Keats, Shelley. In all these discussions, Vittal Rao was quite at home and could hold his own against any other scholar. Often the talks would assume a lighter vein, and one would come across rare flashes of wit and humor. Sometimes he would narrate an anecdote or a story, be it from some humorous writer like Jacob or from his own life, but his presentation was so provokingly funny and unique that the house would resound with pools of laughter from his listeners. Occasionally, his cousin Mark Sanjeeva Rao would drop in for a friendly chat. Sanjeeva Rao, who was a convert to Christianity and a sincere and zealous missionary at that, would try his best to impress Vittal Rao with the superiority of his own faith. But Vittal Rao, always eager for an intellectual bout, would vehemently argue for the other side, and the discussion would at times drag on for hours. In the end, they would part just as good friends as ever, but each unconvinced of the other's point of view as at the start of their discussion, and neither any the wiser. No one who saw or heard Vittal Rao in those carefree and ebullient moods could scarce have guessed that there under all this boyish cheerfulness and laughter ran a streak of genuine anxiety for the business. The secret of it was that even in those days, Vittal Rao had the great gift of looking at things with a detached spirit and shaking off for the time being all cares and worries as if they were never meant for him. His motto appeared to be to live in the living present and let God take care of the morrow. So now 3 steps we have covered. One is God arranged for sowing the seeds of faith and devotion in his heart when his wife fell sick seriously. And after that, slowly, he became dispassionate, detached. And the next was his darshan of Gandhiji and associating with Gandhian thoughts. And though these were all going on one side, the business was sinking. And naturally, there would be stressful moments. But here also, he says, the writer of the book says, that his motto appeared to be live in the living present and let God take care of the tomorrow. Now, on the one hand, the financial condition or the business condition concerned was drifting from bad to worse. On the other, Vittal Rao's domestic life was none too happy. His wife Rukmabai had become a chronic asthmatic patient and was now almost an invalid. As observed in an earlier chapter, she was a strong-willed lady with an orthodox outlook, while her husband was modern in the sense that he refused to subscribe or submit to the superannuated notions of religion and religious life and the abounding bigotry and superstition with which they were surrounded. He was severe and outspoken in his condemnation of orthodoxy, especially its ritualism, and he had little patience with the pampered priestly order who fostered it. Although Rukmabai's love and respect for her husband would ultimately make her yield to this viewpoint, it was not without a painful clash between them. So Papa was free from all these traditional approach, Too much concentration on the ritualistic aspect without paying heed to the philosophic aspect behind it was something which he could not compromise. Later on in the vision of God, when we read, we will find, though he was walking from Mangalore to Karwar side, though they were passing through Shirali, he did not go to the mutt. And there he has explained about the limitation an organization can unknowingly deny us many things. Because throughout yesterday also we were finding it, after evening we were thinking about it. Throughout this struggle, he did not go to any organization, any spiritual organization. He did not seek any counsel or anything from anybody. His reliance on God within was so strong that he did not feel the need to go to any place and seek any clarification. See, these are all the signs, When he talks about later about the indwelling and all-pervading reality, he was very clear about it because he had the first-hand experience of the indwelling reality. When we just think about ourselves, we find that we try to hear so many things. We ask so many things from somebody. All these result unknowingly. It is denying the opportunity to tap the source God has given us. In our preoccupation with so many these outside this thing, we hardly try to recognize that He is within and He has got His own plan for us. Even after coming to ashram for 5 or 6 decades, this has been our experience. We were looking up to somebody, We were never trying to go within. For anything and everything, we were looking up to somebody's. Think about it, honestly. Whereas God is seated in all of us, And he has drafted a plan for all of us in a unique manner. And we never bothered. Initially, of course, there will be some confusion. But later on, we never bothered to check up this. But in his case, no. What an amount of stressful period he was passing through. At home, there is no peace of mind. In the business, no peace of mind. Normally, the tendency is to go to an astrologer and find out what is the planetary position. And the astrologer will prescribe some prayaschittas. Then we go to some institutions or temples and perform something and come back. Or when we happen to know about some saint, we will go there. No such things had happened in his. Not that he condemns anything, but this has been his experience. And that is why he was able to emphatically declare that there is no need for an intermediary. When he wrote that letter, we got it from a letter written, that God does not need an intermediary. He was drawing the truth from his own experience. God does not need an intermediary. If you think God can talk through Ramdas, he can talk through you as well. Because you cannot accuse him of partiality. This is very important. So he is equal in everybody. Switch on your wire for direct communication. Why do you deny him in your heart? These are simple and innocent words, but pregnant with profound ideas. Switch on your wire for direct communication. Why do you deny him in your heart? On the one hand, the financial condition of the business concern was drifting from bad to worse. Vittal Rao was very much attached to his only child, Ramabai. Then 7 years old, as much as she was to him, he centered all his love and affection on his daughter. He would take her to school every morning and escort her back in the afternoon. He would join her in her games and patiently answer all the questions that childish fancy or curiosity prompted her to put to him. And she would be his constant companion during his leisure hours. Yet, very soon, a time was to come when this excessive love for his only child was to be wiped out completely by the universal vision that he had. And his child was to be to him in no sense different from the other children that came to him. That is beautifully mentioned. It is not the detachment, it is not the dispassion. Because of the expansion, he could not see any difference. Yet, very soon a time was to come when this excessive love for his only child was to be wiped out completely by the universal vision that he had. And his child was to be to him in no sense different from the other children that came to him. But slowly and imperceptibly, the external circumstances were helping Vittal Rao's religious inclination to become deeper and his spirit of dispassion to gain an added strength and impetus. Every evening he spent an hour at the house of Vittal Rao, whose children would be engaged in bhajan before the image of Sri Krishna. It is better to make a note, the various stages of Papa's early life as a sadhaka. Starting from when Rukmabai fell seriously sick. So the seed of devotion and faith, and then associating with Gandhiji, having darshan of Gandhiji, then trying to, somehow all these things were shaping him. He developed a distaste for the traditional outlook, traditional approach, especially the ritualistic part, superstitions. All these are contributory factors, It was not one or two, or it was not sudden like this. There is a sequence for everything here. Now, the third stage or fourth stage. Every evening, he spent an hour at the house of Vittal Rao, whose children would be engaged in bhajan before the image of Sri Krishna. During the bhajan, Vittal Rao would lose himself in a blissful state of self-forgetfulness. This is very, very important. Bhajan he was attending, we are also attending bhajans. But he would lose himself in a blissful state of self-forgetfulness. That means the technique of, the method of attuning oneself with that higher power. It has slowly started exhibiting. He now commenced reading fresh, the lofty teaching. Commenced reading afresh. Previously also he would have read, just like all of us read, but we may not remember. But if one particular aspect gets touched in us, then we again go through that book again. And with a different perspective, you will be able to read the whole thing. Similarly, previously we would have read, but now with all these backings, he was prompted to go through the books like, he now commenced reading afresh the lofty teachings of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. We were told that even after coming to this ashram, he always used to read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. The works of Swami Vivekananda and Swami Ramtirtha, as well as other religious books like the Yoga Vasishta, with an intense interest. These works seemed now to unveil to him a deeper meaning and significance than they ever did before, and had the effect of accelerating the speed of the spiritual evolution that was subtly taking place within him. So, something about bhajan, something about swadhyay, something about manan, contemplation, assimilation. It was at this time that Vittal Rao started chanting the Lord's name of Ram. And the repetition of the name brought him great mental peace and joy. So to top it all, all other Nama chantings became a predominant sadhana in him. And the repetition of the name brought him great peace and joy, mental peace and joy. He kept up a ceaseless flow of the blessed name on his tongue, and its humming sound would automatically issue from his lips, even when he was at work or walking in the street. The affairs of Sri Sitaram Vittal Company were plunging deeper and deeper into a quagmire of financial liabilities. Creditors all round were pressing Vittal Rao for settlement of their dues, and it seemed that only Providence could rescue him now from the impending crash and disaster. But the Lord's mercy is proverbial, and it works in a mysterious manner. His wonders to perform. Has not the Lord held forth the divine assurance in the Gita To those men who worship me alone, Ananya Chintayanto Mam, no? Yajana Parivasade, Tesham Nitya Vyukudanam, Yogakshemam Bhagamyam. To those men who worship me alone, thinking of no other, to those ever harmonious, I bring full security. And have we not read of innumerable instances in the lives of our great saints, sages, and saviors, how repeatedly he ran to the succor of his devotees in distress? Even so, he came to Vittal Rao's rescue in a most wonderful way, at a time when everything was past all hope and only a miracle could stave off their utter ruin. One day, a gentleman came to see Vittal Rao at his house, where he was carrying on his dying work. This gentleman was a well-to-do lawyer to Mangalore, lawyer of Mangalore, and had only recently given up his practice at the bar in answer to Mahatmaji's call to boycott the law courts. He took a sudden liking for Vittal Rao, and before their talk had proceeded far, he offered to join him as a partner in his business. Vittal Rao placed before him a true and complete picture of the company's state of affairs, and frankly told him that to join the business at this juncture was tantamount to sharing the deep hole that he himself was then in. But the friend was not to be dissuaded, and he made immediate arrangements to become a partner in the firm. Besides liquidating all the company's liabilities, he invested a pretty big sum in erecting 40 hand looms for the manufacture of Qadar. Later on, he erected a shed also to house those looms. From the time he came in as a partner, he was looking after the business at the shop, and Vittal Rao was managing the handloom establishment. But things for Vittal Rao were fast moving, rather fast. Now here we should all stop for a moment. No? He was passing through stressful. Here he says, only Providence could rescue now from the impending crash and disaster. That was the state of affairs. If you take the balance sheet, the liabilities are more. And even then, when somebody came forward, he was honest and straightforward to tell him that he will also lose his money. But God had prompted the other person. And then another important point is that did not in any way dilute his commitment towards the Godward path. Normally, you and I will definitely say God has helped us, so we will carry on with the business, We may have faith, devotion, everything will be there, no doubt. But the priority will get automatically shifted to that. But here you see that in spite of the fact that somebody had come and saved him from disaster, still, he says, things for Vittal Rao were moving rather fast. Although his new partner was all kindness and saw to it that Vittal Rao's household did not lack anything, Vittal Rao's mind was from day to day running fast in the direction of God. The Lord's name was continuously working on his tongue. He gave up the night meal and other petty comforts of the body. His sadhana evoked remonstrance all around. He started spending the greater part of the nights in the repetition of the name. Rukmabai became thoroughly frightened at the strange turn her husband's life was rapidly taking now. No persuasion, appeal, protest either from her or from his child, could induce him to alter the course he was now made to follow. For he felt very strongly that he was set upon this path by that highest power, which he was struggling to attain and realize. Clarity had come to him at that stage, the goal to be achieved and the method to achieve. He felt very strongly that he was set upon his path by that highest power, not that he wanted. Slowly, it was dawning, it was revealed to him by Ram, the indwelling spirit, the purpose for which he had been brought into the world. So nothing could shake him, nothing could dilute. His entire thrust was on that, because God from inside has touched, rekindled him, put him straight. For he felt very strongly that he was set upon this path by that highest power, which he was struggling to attain and realize. So point by point, if we make a note, we will find that, we will make a trial.
Swamiji, he was not dejected by the negativity that happened.
No.
Otherwise,
Step by step progress.
Step
by step progress.
Step by step. Step by step, at the same time, he had the clarity,
Yes.
If the clarity was not there, he could be easily swayed by anything that was happening. But he had the clarity. God has. Later on, when he started telling, we were not able to understand, In many of his teachings, he would say, why did you leave on 27th December from Mangalore? God made him to leave. That's what he said. It was not a sudden thought that welled up in his mind. The clarity had come. God has drafted him for this. God is making him to go through such experience. And God is the savior and protector, and he will guide. There was absolutely no doubt in it. On the 16th, we are celebrating, we have to celebrate. There is no celebration ashram, but at least we say that word. The 16th is Papa's Jayanti day. 1884, 16, 20, so 138th. 138th Jayanti day. So before we reach that date, we should have some idea about the steps through which an ordinary person like Vittal Rao could become aware of the will of Ram, and how he, without any resistance, he went along with it, in spite of the fact that he had no encouragement from anybody, and on the contrary, total discouragement. Everybody was discouraging him. There is nobody to support. That also we should know, Off the track. Everybody tried to dissuade him, but he was very firm. That firmness he could get only because he was aware that God is guiding him from within. And that was why he was not seeking anything from outside. And God has removed from him all natural inclination for the traditional way of approach and the various rituals. He went straight to the point, All those things are intermediary. He went straight. Not that the tradition was bad or the rituals are bad. They are all supposed to convey the sublime philosophy. But unfortunately, we get stuck with the rituals, stuck with the tradition, and we hardly move forward. And Papa did not halt anywhere. Straight he went. That's why he was able to feel this. Ram made him to leave everything and go. He never said, as Vittal Rao did or something like that, or my sadhana. No, never, never. Everybody asked him, whether at home or in abroad, why did you do that? Straight away he will reply, God made him to. He doesn't know. Like an innocent child, he will say, God made him to do it. These are all something on which we have to keep on pondering, Achha, you made Papa to Vittal Rao to stick on to your words. Why are you not opening up in our house? We will start asking, You made us to go here and there, meet so many people, read so many things, practice so many things, left so many things. We did not concentrate upon anything. Ultimately, we now feel we are nowhere. Why are you not opening up? Like how you opened up in his room, in his mind. Why did you not do it on mine? We will get the answer also. Now, this critical period in Vittal Rao's life and the psychological struggle he was now undergoing have been so beautifully described by him in his later great work, In Quest of God. The writer seeks no excuse to quote extensively from the first chapter in that book. Are you hearing?
Yes, Swami. Yes,
Okay.
Now you quite clear.
This is what Swami Ramdas, as he has been known ever since, says in his own inimitable way of concerning his period of his life. Papa's words quoted from In Quest of God. It was a period of terrible stress and restlessness, all of his own making. That word we should not forget. All of his own making. So long as we identify ourselves as an individual, all these things will be there. All of his own making, When he stepped out of that limitation, then he was free. In this utterly helpless condition, full of misery, where was relief? Where was rest? This was the heart's cry of Ramdas. The cry was heard. And from the great void came the voice, Despair not, trust me, thou shalt be free. This was the voice of Ram. These encouraging words of Ram proved like a plank thrown towards a man struggling for very life in the stormy waves of a raging sea. This great assurance soothed the aching heart of helpless Ramdas like gentle rain on thirsting earth. So another step, Prayer was there, and he says the prayer was heard. We all know now it was purely an intuitive experience. And he brought the word great void. G capital, V capital. He was able to have the clarity on the impersonal person, I capital, P capital. Right from the start, he was very clear. He was very clear about the witness consciousness. He was very clear about the indwelling and all-pervading reality. All these things, so many others are also there. They have been named as great void. To get a clarity on this at the start, it's a great, great, great grace, That through the God initiated him. It was not by X, Y, or Z he got. It was purely from him, intuitively. And what did he hear? Despair not, trust me, and thou shalt be free. And he got that relief. Thenceforward, a part of the time that was formerly devoted to worldly affairs was taken up for meditation of Ram, who for that period gave Ramdas real peace and relief. So this chanting and manana was going on. No? Gradually, love for Ram, the giver of peace, increased. The more Ramdas meditated on and uttered his name, the greater the relief and pleasure he felt. Nights, free as they are from worldly duties, were in course of time utilized for Ram Bhajan with scarcely 1 or 2 hours rest. Ramdas's devotion for Ram progressed by leaps and bounds. Whenever free from worldly duties, for ever so small a period, Ramdas would meditate on and utter the name of God, Ram. Walking on the streets, he would be uttering Ram, Ram. Ramdas was now losing attraction for the objects of the world. Sleep, except for 1 or 2 hours in the night, was given up for the sake of Ram. Fineries in clothes and dress were replaced by coarse khadar. Bed was substituted by a bare mat. Food, first 2 meals a day, was reduced to one, and after some time even this was given up for plantains and boiled potatoes. Chilies and salt were totally eschewed, no taste but for Ram. Meditation of Ram continued apace. It encroached well into the day hours and so-called worldly duties. At this stage, one day, Ramdas's father came to him, sent by Ram. You see, he started telling. Sent by Ram, calling him aside, gave him the upadesh or initiation of the Rama Mantram, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, assuring Ramdas that by repeating this mantra at all times, Ram would give him eternal happiness. This initiation from the father, who thereafter has been looked upon as Gurudev, hastened the aspirant on in his spiritual progress. Off and on, Ramdas was prompted by Ram to read the teachings of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, of Jesus Christ in the New Testament, of Mahatma Gandhi in Young India and Ethical Religion. The young plant of devotion to Ram was thus nurtured in the electric atmosphere created by the influence of these great two men on the mind of humble Ramdas. It was at this time that it slowly dawned upon the mind of Ramdas that Ram was the only reality and all else was false. While desires for the enjoyment of worldly things was fast falling off, consideration of me and mine was also wearing out. The sense of possession and relationship was vanishing. All thought, all mind, all heart, all soul was being concentrated on Ram, Ram covering up, absorbing everything. We cannot say that. We can only say, taking Papa's own words, God chose to reveal in him. So we have to ask him, we have to pray to him. We have never prayed intently, We look back our own years, ever since we started coming to this ashram or any Mahatma or Papa. What did we do? And we now know. See these photos, What was the state of Papa's physical condition? And how blissful he was. Only this reading has helped us to know that it was not that Papa did this and did that. God who chose him for this particular mission in the world started revealing, and that because the mind was receptive, he was able to know that. At nowhere in Papa's teachings you will find, he says, the sadhana had enabled him to reach. No. It was purely by Ram's will. That is why in Quest of God, he is always repeating, by the will of Ram, by the will of Ram, by the will of Ram. Because it was a reality to him. It was not that he was prompted to say that by any outside agency. He felt from within. So tomorrow is 15th. Day after tomorrow is 16th. So tomorrow we will continue the other portion where where the cross toward the final plunge. Crossing the Rubicon and rebirth into divinity, if possible. Our idea is not to cover any portion. We request all of you to kindly make a note of this, in your own way. Whatever you have heard, whatever you have been able to apply your mind, it will be a good sadhana. Not that we are going to follow what he did, but for our sadhana, something will definitely, get touched. Something will open up somewhere. Though we are all fortunate or we feel blessed that we have been drawn by Papa to this ashram, and we have been, by and large, blessed to know something about Papa's approach to spirituality. We are all blessed. The only thing is, though God has facilitated everything for us, our sense of individuality has prevented from moving towards him. Unknowingly. Somehow, the sense of individuality started prioritizing on so many other things. With the result, we were not able to pool, or we were not able to eke out the maximum benefit from God's awakening us. It is because of God's awakening only we were drawn to Papa. That she is very clear to all of us. In some form, some instrumental cause will be there, but all these years we have been able to have some idea. Papa's approach to spirituality is something unique. Here no other sadhana, maximum concentration on nama with the right perspective. That aspect probably we would not have applied our mind. 90% or 75% or 80%, it may differ from person to person. It was on the superficial plane. Or when he provided us various opportunities to get clarity, our sense of individuality immediately, did not concentrate. But now, out of his mercy for us, God has again brought us back into the line. Now you check up, as if he is asking every one of us. By going through the life and style of Papa, you try to now understand what are the things that have blocked you, and which are the areas where we can now try. And we should know the assurance is there that he is the guide, he is the protector. He is guiding us. Yesterday, before 3:30, before 4 o'clock, 3:45 or something like that, we went and asked, can you get a copy of Passage to Divinity? It was not there. She rushed up here, got a few copies of Passage to Divinity. 3:40 or 3:45, mind you. Look. And then he made us to go through yesterday. We don't need any other proof for his guidance. So he is guiding us. Let us become receptive to his guidance. Especially because, there's an instrumental cause. The 16th happens to be his Jayanti day. At least on 16th, we will be thinking more and more about the life of Vittal Rao, and the transition. What are all the steps through which he was prompted by step? It was not a sudden plunge. And he did not think twice, He was steadily moving. Probably that is why he coined the 3 points later. Fixed resolve, sustained faith, optimistic outlook. We all remember for repeating, but this is, from his own experience. Fixed resolve and sustained faith. No vacillation, no doubting. An optimistic outlook. God gave him the assurance, I will take you, So let us all try to do more and more on this aspect. And tomorrow again we will continue and pray to him now, who is seated within us, who has prompted us to closely go along with this exemplary life and mission of Papa, especially as Vittal Rao, and then as Swami Ramdas. So we pray to him to kindly provide us the opportunity of becoming aware of his presence within us and make us to steadfastly move towards him in the way in which he prompts us from within. Hari Om. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om